Hey YouTube, welcome to another episode of Comics and Stuff, brand new. I've been gone for 2 weeks because I sent in my old GoPro Hero 4 Silver that I was using to film my videos and used the GoPro's trade-up program to get the new Hero 5 Black, which is what I'm filming on now, and it's beautiful. It is a sleek and sexy small little camera that I am absolutely in love with. I told you guys it would take maybe a week or so. I think I said it was 5 to 14 business days, and unfortunately it took longer, closer to the 14 business days to get this new camera out to me. So I had to take my old GoPro, mail it off, and then wait for the new one to get to me. And I had to wait for the order to process, throughout that. So unfortunately it took 2 weeks instead of one, but that's okay. I am back and excited and ready to be here. Today's video is going to be about the differences and pros and cons between local comic book shops and online comics. So it's going to be really cool. I was thinking about putting this video in the Comic Sense playlist, but I'm really feeling Nerd Novelty on this, guys. So I'm going to put it in Nerd Novelty. If you guys disagree with that, if you think it should go in Comic Sense, please let me know in the comments down below. Now, let's quickly talk about this. Local comic book shops, it really depends on where you live. You can have a ton in your city or you can have none in your city, and it can either be super convenient or super inconvenient. Same thing with online comics. There are a ton of different platforms in which you can read comics online. The main one that everybody goes to is Comixology, which is now owned by Amazon.com. So let's talk about that. I want to start with local comic book shops. So pros for local comic book shop. These are the good things, the best things. One, when you are buying from your local comic book shop, you are supporting a local business. Now, granted, I know that there are a few comic book shop chains throughout the country, but I mean, there's a very small percentage of comic book shops that you'll find in Seattle. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of at least 7 in my area. I'm in downtown Seattle, so again, I mean, yeah, there's a ton of local comic book shops, and I'm a huge supporter of supporting your own economy, supporting a local business, bringing in money to people who live in your neighborhood, that sort of stuff. I think it's really cool, and I think locally owned comic book shops are a great example of that. So that's pro number 1. Pro number 2 for supporting local comic book shops is, I think, and this is an opinion, so just full disclosure, I think that it really helps keep your local comic book community going. When you're at your local comic book shop, I mean, especially if you have a subscription box like I do, where you just go and pick up your comic books weekly, you get to know the other regulars in there, you get to know the employees in there, you guys sit down and talk, discuss, hang out while you're reading your comic books, you make friends. I think the guys who work at the shop that I go to, I've known them since I was 12. They all know me. They all know my son. Every time I go in there, it's not just how can I help you? Let me check your book out and you can be on your way. I get a warm welcome hello. Everybody knows me. They instantly grab my box and we discuss the latest whatever we're reading. I sat with one of the guys for 30 minutes a couple days ago. I generally pick up on Thursdays, even though comics come in on Wednesdays, but I picked up on Thursday, and one of the guys, Russ, came up and talked to me, and we were chatting for almost 25-30 minutes just about the latest Batman arc and the latest Green Lanterns arc, because I'm a huge fan of Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz, and so is he. So I think it's really cool that local comic book shops provide a meeting area outside of Comic-Con for your local nerds and comic book readers. That's pro number 2, and pro number 3 is collectibles. When I say collectibles, I mean you have your pick at the comic shop. You don't have to order something online and wait for it to ship. You can pick it up right then and there. You can get your variant covers, which you'd have to go out of your way to order for a ridiculous price online. You can buy your statues there instead of waiting for shipping and paying a ton for shipping on your statues. The shop I go to has a giant wall of Funko Pops, so whenever my kid and I go in there, he sees the Funko Pop, he's like, "Dad, can I get this, or can I use my money to get this?" And we don't have to order it online and wait for shipping and handling, so I think that's really awesome. And it's cheaper, I guess, on a collectible sense. But unfortunately, local comic book shops also have cons, or I guess shopping at a local comic shop has your cons as well. One, some things can be more expensive. For example, if you are reading just a single issue comic book, say it has a $3.99 cover price, well, you got to remember that cover price is not only just their overhead or is their profit, but you also have to think about, well, they had to pay money to print for this, so you're paying for a printed physical comic book. Whereas online, you can find books for, if you're reading comic books online at like places like such as Comixology, you can find them for, $1 off or something because you're not paying for a tangible physical book. So that's con number one, is it can be a little more expensive. Personally, I'm okay with it, but some people may not be. Con number two is you may end up with a lot of books laying around your apartment or your house, like I do. Haha. Sometimes I have so many comic books that I don't even know what to do with them. I have 2 stacks that I can see that are each about as tall as my hand. So this, like, from my wrist to the tip of my middle finger, each one is about that tall. I have no idea what I'm going to do with them. So you may end up with a lot of books hanging around your place. But yeah, those are my pros and cons for your local comic book shops. Now, let me talk about online shopping or online comic books. And let me I'm going to, not to single out Comixology, but Comixology being kind of like the industry standard, I'm going to talk about Comixology. So, pros for Comixology. And I do use both Comixology and shopping at my local comic book shop, so I'll get to that in a minute. But pros for Comixology. 1, you can read on the go without having to worry about damaging your comic book, getting it in and out of your bag. You can just pull it up on your phone, your tablet, your laptop. You can just read as you go. The app lets you download the books onto your phone, so you don't have to be hooked up to Wi-Fi to read it, which is neat. And then just make sure that you download it before you go home. But that'll also go into a con in a second. Now, 2, it's cheaper. Like I mentioned when I was talking about the cons for the local comic book shops, it's cheaper to buy comics or buy digital comics, simply because you're not paying for a tangible book. You're not paying for a physical book that you have to take care of. You're just paying for the digital file online. So it's not like that you're paying any extra for that. And 3, exclusive content. Many times, web comics. I mean, it's in the name, web comics. They will eventually get a physical book, but web comics, you read them on the web, and then Comixology often has a lot of exclusive content that you can, like, for example, there's a few books on Comixology that are not available in store until much later, down the road. So the Injustice comic book series for the Injustice game, originally when it came out, it started just on Comixology. You could not get it on in the store until they finished the first volume. So that was really cool, and I really enjoyed being able to purchase those for $1.99 and then getting the volume or the trade paperback in store. But so things like that, Comixology may release like limited series runs that just are exclusive to Comixology. You can't buy them in store. Now, cons for online comics. 1, not all of your titles are available on Comixology. For example, if I wanted to read, say, Golden Age action comics, and not that's a pretty non-run-of-the-mill thing. That's me. But if I wanted to read a Golden Age heroes stories, Comixology doesn't have that. Comixology has modern stuff, the new stuff, maybe some stuff from the 70s or 80s, but mostly it's new stuff. If I wanted to read an old series, I'd have to go find one of the archived or collected editions that you can only get at local comic shops, or you'd have to order online and pay for shipping and handling. So, if I go to my local comic book shop downtown right now, I mean, they have these, classic, these collected editions. I mean, this I'm pretty sure you can find online, but, they have these collected editions that you can go buy at your shop, and, it's like $15-20, but you can give them a read and read your old stuff, So I think that's really cool, that local comic shops can do that. But yeah, unfortunately, Comixology just doesn't. And 2, second con for this guy is, unfortunately, when you're buying comic books online from a place like Comixology, which is owned by Amazon, which is one of the largest companies on the planet, and makes, I mean, their stock is out the roof. When you're buying online and reading digitally, even though it's convenient for you, unfortunately, it is taking away from local businesses. And like I mentioned, I'm a big supporter of pumping money into your own economy and helping out your neighbor and your local business and, things like that. So I go to Pike Place Market. That's where I do my grocery shopping. That's where I get my comics. That's where I go. So when you're using online comics, yeah, it takes away from local businesses, and you're not wrong for doing so. Nobody's going to judge you for it, because like I said, I also use Comixology. I have a balance, and I'll talk about that in a second. But if you exclusively do that, yeah, that's one customer less for your local comic book shop, which can hurt them. So, one more con for your local comic book shop. This one is a little unfortunate, is there isn't always a local comic book shop, in the area. If you live in some little town in the middle of nowhere, you might not have a comic book shop. The nearest comic book shop might be 45 minutes to an hour away, and what if you don't have a car? What if you have a really bad car? You never know. So in that case, Comixology might be the right thing for you, so it really depends on what your situation is as well. Now, moving on, as far as things go for me, I like I said, I use both my local comic book shop and Comixology. My local comic book shop, I used to pick up my favorite titles that I want to physically collect, such as Saga, Aquaman, The Flash, things like that. I'm also really into the current James Bond series, which I will pick up at my local comic book shop. But then, on Comixology, I have my series that I don't really care to collect, like, physically, and I kind of read them at work when there's nothing else to do. And if any of my bosses ever see this, Lizzie, I'm sorry. But anyways, so yeah, that's really it. I've tried to maintain a good balance. I think I have like 5 or 6 series that I follow on Comixology and just purchase them maybe once or twice a month. And then my local comic shop, I'm there every Thursday. So it's a decent balance. It really is, and again, it's just all about how you do it, man. That's really it. But I hope this video was perhaps helpful in, getting some of you guys to decide whether you want to stick exclusively to local comic shops or exclusively to online comics, or both. And if you have any questions, or if I said anything that you don't agree with, please let me know in the comments below. It's not my intention to offend anybody. And, make sure that you smash the sweet baby Jesus out of that subscribe button, like this baby, send it or share it with all your friends. And, that's really it, guys. So thanks for letting me rant. I'm happy to be back, and I will see you guys next Friday.